Drafting Joe Burrow was supposed to save the Bengals, but what if that decision didn't fix the franchise? It only revealed how fragile their future might be. For decades, Cincinnati was the NFL's punchline, a team weighed down by losing seasons and dysfunction. Then came 2020. The Bengals took Burrow first overall.
With the first pick in the 2020 draft, the Cincinnati Bengals select Joe Burrow, quarterback, LSU.
And within just 2 years, he delivered the first playoff win since 1990 and a trip to Super Bowl 56. Now, 5 years after the draft, the question hangs over the franchise. Did Burrow truly save Cincinnati?
Burrow with 4:39 through the air to the end zone. Touchdown, Higgins!
Or did he open a window they may not know how to keep? To answer that, you have to see how deep the problem really was. What made Joe Burrow the clear choice to transform Cincinnati was that, unlike so many quarterbacks before him, he had the resume and traits that directly addressed the team's deepest needs. For 2 decades, the Bengals cycled through supposed franchise answers at quarterback who never quite became long-term solutions. Akili Smith, taken 3rd overall in 1999, was out of the league just after 4 seasons. Carson Palmer, drafted in 2003, flashed star potential but left after an injury-marred run and a bitter trade demand from the team. Andy Dalton, a 2nd-round pick in 2011, was efficient enough to make the playoffs 5 straight years, but never delivered a single postseason win. Each was billed as the next guy up at one point, but Cincinnati never found stability. Burrow, meanwhile, entered the 2020 draft with a level of certainty few prospects ever carried. His 2019 season at LSU was not just dominant, it was historic. He threw for 5,671 yards and 60 touchdowns while leading the Tigers to an undefeated season and a national championship win over Clemson. Heisman voters rewarded him with the largest margin of victory in the award's history.
He's going to have to chuck it downfield. He will. End zone.
To NFL evaluators, those numbers mattered not simply because they filled a stat sheet, but because they confirmed his ability to diagnose defenses, deliver with precision, and raise the level of play for everyone around him. Beyond the raw production, Burrow's intangibles were equally important. At LSU, his composure under pressure, his ability to communicate with teammates, and his chemistry with receivers like Jamar Chase all stood out as qualities that would translate immediately to the next level. He wasn't just putting up video game numbers. He was running an offense like a professional already in control of his craft. So when draft night came, the choice wasn't really a debate. Other quarterbacks in the class had significant question marks. Tua Tagovailoa was coming off a serious hip injury, while Justin Herbert was considered talented but inconsistent. Burrow combined both elite production and the steady leadership Cincinnati had lacked for decades. For a franchise searching for hope, he wasn't just the best option, he was the only credible option. All that promise, however, still needed to be proven on Sundays.
Burrow aiming in zone. A 14-yard strike. Burrow trying to thread the needle.
The real measure of Burrow's impact began once the Bengals officially turned in that draft card. By the time the Bengals were on the clock in 2020, their situation was desperate. The 2019 season had ended at 2-14, tying the worst record in franchise history and confirming just how far the team had fallen. That year also marked the first season for head coach Zach Taylor, hired as part of a broader reset meant to modernize the roster and coaching staff. The combination of a new leader on the sideline and the #1 overall pick created a rare, high-stakes moment. This was about more than football. It was about whether the Bengals could restore credibility after decades of frustration. The debate around who to draft never lasted long. Burrow's breakout had already been established by the time the offseason began, and Cincinnati's glaring need at quarterback made him the obvious choice. But for the franchise, this wasn't a routine pick. It was effectively an identity shift. A franchise that had been defined by cautious spending, outdated facilities, and years of irrelevance now held in its hands a chance to change the story. Fans who had endured 3 decades without a playoff win saw the moment as a lifeline. What happened next would validate that belief faster than anyone expected. Burrow entered the league with the calm demeanor and accuracy Cincinnati had been missing.
Here comes the quarterback, Burrow, looking for a block, and he got it up in the front by Hopkins into the end zone. Touchdown!
And from his earliest starts, he offered something different: stability. His ability to absorb pressure in the pocket and build trust with his receivers separated him immediately from the quarterbacks who came before him. The Bengals had cycled through players who consistently cracked in big moments. Burrow, on the other hand, didn't flinch. Adding Jamar Chase in the 2021 draft only accelerated the transformation. Their chemistry, forged at LSU, carried over seamlessly, giving the offense a dynamic that other teams simply couldn't match. Chase's deep threat ability perfectly complemented complemented Burrow's timing and precision, forming a partnership that turned Cincinnati into one of the league's most explosive units almost overnight. The results spoke louder than any narrative. In just his second season, Burrow delivered what no Cincinnati quarterback had since Boomer Esiason, a playoff win, ending the team's 31-year drought that stretched back to the 1990 season. That postseason run went further than even loyal fans had imagined, continuing all the way to Super Bowl 56. It was a level of success that had once felt impossible, reshaping the Bengals' relevance on the national stage. With victories came cultural change. Who Dey chants echoed beyond Cincinnati. And the games that once barely attracted national attention suddenly became primetime events. Season ticket demand surged, merchandise sales grew, and for the first time in years, the Bengals weren't just tolerated by the league, they were respected. The decision to draft Burrow had fundamentally altered how the team was perceived both inside and outside of Ohio. Burrow didn't just revive a struggling team, he redefined its trajectory. The Bengals hadn't won any playoff games, drawn national interest, or inspired local optimism in decades. Within 2 seasons, those narratives were turned upside down. The ownership didn't have to announce a change in direction. The wins themselves forced the conversation to shift. Even as Joe Burrow's early success rewrote expectations, it raised a new, pressing question. If one player could flip the franchise in just 2 seasons, what could possibly still go wrong?
Burrow, fumbling pocket, on the fly, downfield, he's got him, that's Mixon!
Joe Burrow's rise gave Cincinnati a new identity, but it also revealed how fragile that success might be. The Bengals had their franchise quarterback, yet the environment around him showed cracks that threatened to shorten the window of his prime. 3 challenges in particular stood out as defining tests for the organization. From day one, Burrow's health became the single most pressing issue. In his rookie year, he tore his ACL, MCL after enduring relentless pressure behind a struggling line. Even after his return, the punishment didn't stop. He was one of the most hit quarterbacks in the league, and in multiple postseasons ranked among the most sacked. By 2023, another season-ending injury to his wrist reminded everyone how quickly the team's hopes could collapse. That constant cycle, elite play followed by major physical setbacks, showed that no individual talent, no matter how gifted, could thrive without consistent protection up front. The clash between his league-leading passing production in certain years and his constant exposure to hits became the clearest symbol of Cincinnati's precarious balance.
Burrow to Higgins, touchdown!
Even when Joe Burrow played at a historic pace, the rest of the roster sometimes failed to match his output. Nowhere was this clearer than in 2024, when Cincinnati achieved a statistical anomaly never seen before in the NFL. Burrow led the league in passing yards and touchdowns. Jamar Chase added on by winning the Triple Crown in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. And Trey Hendrickson topped the league in sacks. Yet, the Bengals missed the playoffs entirely. That paradox captured the team's biggest vulnerability. Individual excellence was not enough to offset unit-wide inconsistency, particularly on defense. While certain stars thrived, the group as a whole lacked the steady reliability needed to survive across a full season. The gap between eye-popping numbers and disappointing results was a warning. The franchise's foundation wasn't yet stable. The third challenge was less about game day performance and more about the business of football. The Bengals front office faced difficult decisions about how to sustain Burrow's supporting cast. T. Higgins entered contract limbo, and Jamar Chase's own future was complicated by negotiations surrounding his 5th-year option and looming extension talks. These questions arrived against a backdrop of the Bengals' long-sustaining reputation for frugal spending and limited investment in facilities and scouting. Burrow could elevate teammates, but no quarterback thrives if his best weapons are allowed to leave or if the roster around him is thinning for financial reasons.
Burrow looking deep. He's got Higgins out there. Caught! Touchdown, Cincinnati!
The chemistry he developed with Chase and Higgins was a central reason for their rise. Yet that very chemistry was at risk without clear commitment from ownership. Put together, these 3 issues, an unstable offensive line tied directly to injury risk, a roster with defensive holes despite star power, and contract uncertainty around his best playmakers, set the parameters of Joe Burrow's true challenge. His production has lived up to the hype, and his leadership has energized both the locker room and the city. But without institutional depth around him, the Bengals risk turning his prime into an era remembered for missed opportunities rather than championships. That tension puts the team at a crossroads. Despite reaching a Super Bowl in 2021 and producing record-breaking numbers in 2024, the Bengals still face a fragile window where one more injury, one more roster misstep, or one more lapse in defensive reliability could derail everything. For a quarterback capable of carrying a franchise into contention, the stakes are simple but urgent. His greatness requires an organizational willing to rise with him. Despite the uncertainty surrounding their roster, the Bengals made key moves by locking down both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins with extensions. However, when it seemed like things were stabilizing, another contract issue arose. Trey Hendrickson, a crucial part of their defense, found himself in a contract dispute, which only added to the front office's mounting criticism. For a few weeks, it looked like the Bengals might lose one of their strongest assets on a defense that was already struggling. But like with Chase and Higgins, they managed to get Hendrickson re-signed. Everything appeared to be falling into place for 2025, until Joe Burrow suffered a grade 3 turf toe injury, requiring surgery and sidelining him for 3 months. It feels like a familiar story. Preseason hype, a stacked roster, only for everything to be thrown off course by unexpected setbacks. That leads us to the big question. Are the Bengals wasting the prime of a generational quarterback in Joe Burrow? What pieces are still missing for this team to finally break through? And perhaps most importantly, what's the one thing they're missing to reach the next level? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our upcoming content. If you like this video, you'll definitely enjoy our documentary on the Detroit Lions, another team with Super Bowl potential that just can't seem to get over the hump. Stick around for that video. All you have to do is click on it because it's coming up right now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.